Most men never realize they are living someone else's script. Not their father's, not their boss's, not society's. Their own, but written years ago, when they were too young to know what they were doing. You wrote it with every failure you internalized, every rejection you replayed, every criticism you accepted as permanent truth. And now, years later, you are still performing that script, wondering why your life feels like a loop you cannot escape. Here is what nobody tells you. You are not trapped by your circumstances. You are trapped by the story you keep telling yourself about your circumstances. Every day, you wake up and perform the same mental rituals. You predict failure before you attempt anything. You imagine rejection before you speak. You rehearse disappointment before you even know the outcome. And then, because your mind does not distinguish between vivid imagination and lived experience, your body, your decisions, and your behavior begin to align with those predictions. This is not about positive thinking. This is not about pretending hardship does not exist. This is about understanding a simple, brutal truth. Your mind is a directive system, not a passive observer. Whatever you focus on most intensely, most repeatedly, with the most emotion, that becomes your instruction manual. And if your dominant focus is shaped by fear, then fear is writing your future. The question is not whether you have been thinking this way. You have. The question is, are you willing to rewrite the script? Because no one else can do it for you. Not your mentor, not your therapist, not your spouse. Only you can decide which thoughts will govern your actions, which images will shape your decisions, and which internal voice will have final authority. Let's begin. Before we go any further, you need to understand something most men miss entirely. You are not struggling with motivation. You are struggling with identity. You say you want to build a successful business, but deep down, you still see yourself as someone who isn't cut out for that. You say you want to speak with confidence, but internally, you identify as someone who always messes up in front of others. You say you want financial stability, but you carry an identity of someone who never has enough. And here is the problem. You cannot sustain behavior that contradicts your identity. You can force yourself to act differently for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But eventually, your behavior will snap back to match the identity you hold. Not because you are weak, not because you lack discipline, but because your subconscious will not allow you to live in contradiction with the story you believe about yourself. This is why New Year's resolutions fail. This is why motivation fades. This is why you can read 100 books, watch 1,000 videos, and still find yourself back where you started. You are trying to change your actions without changing the identity that drives those actions. So let's make this concrete. Right now, in this moment, answer this question honestly. Who do you believe you are? Not who you want to be. Not who you wish you were. Who do you actually believe you are, deep down, when no one is watching, when the door is closed and the mask comes off? Do you believe you are someone who finishes what they start? Or someone who quits when it gets hard? Do you believe you are someone who handles pressure with calm? Or someone who panics when challenged? Do you believe you are someone worthy of respect? Or someone who expects to be overlooked? Your answer to that question, the one you actually believe, not the one you wish were true, is the script you are currently performing. And until you rewrite that identity, every effort you make will be temporary. Every burst of motivation will fade. Every plan you create will eventually collapse back into the pattern of the person you still believe yourself to be. This is the part most motivational content ignores. They tell you to think positive. They tell you to visualize success. But they do not tell you that visualization without identity shift is fantasy, not transformation. If you see yourself succeeding but do not fundamentally believe you are the kind of person who succeeds, your subconscious will reject the image. It will say, that is not us. That is not who we are. And it will pull you back. So the first step is not to imagine success. The first step is to decide, consciously, deliberately, who you are going to be from this point forward. Not what you will achieve, not what you will acquire, who you will be. Will you be someone who faces difficulty and learns from it? Or someone who avoids difficulty and stays small? Will you be someone who speaks truth even when it is uncomfortable? Or someone who stays silent to avoid conflict? Will you be someone who takes responsibility for their results? Or someone who blames circumstances and waits for rescue? You must decide this first. Because everything else, every action, every choice, every moment of discipline flows from that decision. Now that you understand the identity trap, let's talk about why your mind defaults to fear in the first place. Your brain was not designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. And in the environment your ancestors lived in, survival meant one thing: detect threats before they detect you. The human who ignored danger did not pass on their genes. The human who saw danger everywhere, even when it was not there, lived long enough to reproduce. So over thousands of generations, your brain developed a bias. When in doubt, assume threat. This served your ancestors well. It does not serve you well now. You are no longer living in an environment where a wrong move means death. You are living in an environment where a wrong move means embarrassment, temporary failure, or social discomfort. But your brain does not know the difference. When you think about speaking up in a meeting, your brain treats it like facing a predator. When you think about starting a new venture, your brain treats it like stepping into unknown territory where danger could be hiding. When you think about taking a risk, your brain screams, "Stop! Retreat! Stay safe!" And because your brain is very good at its job, it does not just warn you once. It bombards you with images of everything that could go wrong. It shows you failing publicly. It shows you being rejected. It shows you losing everything. It does this not to torture you, but because it genuinely believes it is protecting you. But here is the problem. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. When you vividly imagine failure, your body responds as though failure were happening. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your muscles tense. Stress hormones flood your system. And your brain interprets this physiological response as confirmation. See? This is dangerous. We were right to be afraid. So it doubles down. It shows you even more vivid images of disaster. It reminds you of every past failure. It whispers that you are not ready, not capable, not worthy. And the more you engage with these thoughts, the more you entertain them, rehearse them, give them attention, the stronger they become. This is not a flaw in your character. This is a design feature of your nervous system. But it is a design feature built for a world that no longer exists. You must learn to override it. Not by ignoring fear. Not by pretending it is not there. But by recognizing it for what it is, an outdated alarm system that treats every uncomfortable situation like a life or death scenario. When fear arises, you do not need to obey it. You need to assess it. Ask, is this actually dangerous, or does it just feel dangerous? Ask, is this a real threat to my survival, or is this my brain trying to protect me from discomfort? Ask, what is the worst that could actually happen, and could I handle it? Most of the time, the answer will be clear. The threat is not real. The danger is not physical. The risk is manageable. And once you recognize that, you can make a different choice. You can say, thank you, brain, for trying to protect me. But I am not in danger. I am in growth. And I am moving forward anyway. This is not recklessness. This is recalibration. You are teaching your brain to distinguish between actual danger and perceived discomfort. And over time, with repetition, your default response will shift. Fear will still arise, but it will no longer control you. Here is where most men get stuck. They understand that their thinking needs to change. They even understand that fear is an outdated response. but they cannot bring themselves to take full responsibility for where they are. They say, "My parents taught me to think this way." They say, "My circumstances made me this way." They say, "The world is rigged against people like me." And to some extent, those statements may be true. You may have grown up in an environment that taught you fear. You may have faced circumstances that were genuinely difficult. You may have encountered systems that did not favor you. But here is the part you need to hear. None of that changes what you must do now. Blame may be accurate. It may even be justified. But blame does not build your future. Responsibility does. You can spend the rest of your life explaining why you are where you are. Or you can spend the rest of your life deciding where you are going. You cannot do both. Let me be very clear. Taking responsibility does not mean pretending your past did not happen. It does not mean ignoring injustice. It does not mean absolving others of their role in your struggles. Taking responsibility means this: regardless of how I got here, I am the only one who can move me forward. No one is coming to rewrite your story for you. No one is coming to fix your thinking. No one is coming to hand you confidence, discipline, or purpose. You must claim it yourself. And that claim begins with a single decision. From this point forward, I am responsible for the direction of my thoughts. Not for every thought that enters your mind. You cannot control that. But for which thoughts you feed, which you starve, and which you allow to guide your actions. This is the split that separates men who change from men who complain. Complainers stay focused on the past. Builders stay focused on the present and future. Complainers ask, "Why did this happen to me?" Builders ask, "What am I going to do about it?" Complainers rehearse grievances. Builders rehearse solutions. Complainers wait for circumstances to improve. Builders improve despite circumstances. You must decide which one you will be. Not someday. Now. Because every day you spend in blame is a day you do not spend in building. And those days add up faster than you think. Now we get practical. You understand the identity trap. You understand the threat detection bias. You understand the responsibility blame split. Now you need to know, how do you actually redirect your thinking? Here is the process, step by step. Step 1. Notice without judgment. The first skill is awareness. You cannot change what you do not notice. So you must begin to observe your own thinking as though you were a third party. When a fearful thought arises, do not immediately try to suppress it. Do not shame yourself for having it. Simply notice it. Say to yourself, "I am thinking about failure right now." Say, "I am imagining rejection." Say, "I am replaying a past mistake." This creates distance. You are not the thought. You are the observer of the thought. And that distinction is critical. Step 2. Ask the identity question. Once you have noticed the thought, ask, does this thought belong to the person I have decided to become? Not the person you were. Not the person you are afraid you are. The person you have consciously decided to become. If the answer is no, move to step 3. Step 3. Replace with a directive thought. This is not about forced positivity. This is about giving your mind a different instruction. Instead of, "I am going to fail," say, "I am prepared to handle whatever comes." Instead of, "People will reject me," say, "I will speak my truth and let the outcome unfold." Instead of, "This is too hard," say, "This is difficult, and I am capable of difficult things." Notice the difference. You are not pretending difficulty does not exist. You are simply shifting the focus from predicted collapse to chosen response. Step 4. Anchor it with action. Thought alone is not enough. You must take one immediate action, no matter how small, that aligns with the new thought. If you redirected fear about a conversation, send the message you have been avoiding. If you redirected doubt about your capability, do one small task that demonstrates competence. If you redirected worry about the future, take one step that moves you toward your goal. Action confirms the new thought. It tells your subconscious, we are serious about this. This is not just talk. Step 5. Repeat until it becomes automatic. This is not a one-time exercise. This is a daily practice. You will need to redirect your thinking dozens of times a day at first. Maybe hundreds. That is not failure. That is training. Every time you notice a fear-based thought and replace it with a purpose-based thought, you are weakening the old neural pathway and strengthening the new one. Over time, weeks, then months, the new pathway becomes the default. And when that happens, you will notice something remarkable. Your external life begins to shift without you forcing it. Opportunities appear that you would have missed before. Conversations go differently. Decisions become clearer. Not because the world changed, but because you are now filtering your experience through a different lens. This is not magic. This is pattern recognition. Your brain is designed to find evidence for whatever you are looking for. If you are looking for reasons to fear, you will find them. If you are looking for reasons to move forward, you will find those too. The world is neutral. Your filter is not. You can redirect your thinking all day long. But if you are constantly consuming content and surrounding yourself with people who reinforce fear, you will make no progress. Your environment is not neutral. It is either strengthening your new identity or eroding it. Let's be very specific about this. 1. The media you consume. If you spend your free time watching news designed to provoke anxiety, scrolling through social media engineered to trigger comparison and inadequacy, or consuming entertainment that glorifies cynicism, you are feeding your mind poison and expecting it to produce health. This does not mean you ignore reality. It means you choose your information sources deliberately instead of passively consuming whatever the algorithm feeds you. Ask yourself, is this making me more capable or more afraid? If the answer is more afraid, and it is not actionable information, stop consuming it. 2. The people you spend time with. This is harder, but it is just as critical. If the 5 people you spend the most time with are constantly complaining, constantly explaining why effort is pointless, constantly mocking anyone who tries to improve, you will absorb that worldview no matter how disciplined you think you are. You do not need to cut people off cruelly, but you do need to create distance from voices that reinforce the identity you are trying to leave behind. Seek out, even if it is just 1 or 2 people, individuals who are building something, who take responsibility, who speak about problems as challenges to solve, not as reasons to surrender. Even if their field is completely different from yours, their attitude will feed your resolve. 3. The conversations you engage in. Pay attention to what you say when you talk about your goals, your challenges, your future. Do you speak from possibility or from defeat? Do you describe your plans with conviction, or do you preemptively undermine them with disclaimers? Do you talk about what you are building, or do you talk about what you are avoiding? Your speech is not just communication. It is self-programming. Every time you speak doubt aloud, you reinforce it. Every time you speak purpose aloud, you strengthen it. This does not mean you lie about your struggles. It means you frame them differently. Instead of, I'm terrible at this, say, I'm learning this. Instead of, nothing ever works for me, say, I'm figuring out what works. Instead of, I'll probably fail, say, I'm committed to seeing this through. Small shifts in language create massive shifts in identity over time. Let's address the final obstacle, the one that stops most men even after they understand everything we have covered so far. You know you need to redirect your thinking. You know you need to change your identity. You know you need to take responsibility. But then you say, I don't feel like it. And because you do not feel like it, you do not do it. And because you do not do it, nothing changes. And because nothing changes, you conclude that change is impossible for you. Here is the truth you must internalize. Your feelings are not in charge. Your decisions are. Feelings are important. They provide information, but they do not get to dictate your actions. Most men operate under the belief that they must feel motivated before they act, that they must feel confident before they speak, that they must feel ready before they begin. This is backwards. Action creates feeling, not the other way around. You do not wait until you feel disciplined to act with discipline. You act with discipline, and the feeling follows, sometimes immediately, sometimes weeks later, but it follows. You do not wait until you feel confident to speak up. You speak up despite the lack of confidence, and confidence builds through repetition. You do not wait until you feel ready to start. You start, and readiness develops through engagement. This is the discipline-emotion hierarchy. Discipline comes first. Emotion comes second. If you reverse that order, you will spend your entire life waiting for feelings that never arrive. So here is what you must do every single day, especially on the days when you do not feel like it. You must act from identity, not from emotion. When your alarm goes off and you do not feel like getting up, you do not ask yourself, "How do I feel?" You ask yourself, "Who have I decided to be?" If you have decided to be someone who honors their commitments, you get up. When you face a difficult conversation and you do not feel like having it, you do not ask, "Am I comfortable?" You ask, "Who have I decided to be?" If you have decided to be someone who speaks truth, you have the conversation. When you encounter resistance in your work and you do not feel like pushing through, you do not ask, "Is this easy?" You ask, "Who have I decided to be?" If you have decided to be someone who finishes what they start, you push through. This is how identity becomes unshakable, not by feeling your way into it, but by acting your way into it. Every time you act in alignment with your chosen identity, especially when you do not feel like it, you are casting a vote for that identity. And when you cast enough votes, the identity becomes real. Not because you convinced yourself, because you proved it through action. Most men quit too early because they are measuring progress on the wrong timeline. They redirect their thinking for a week and expect their entire life to transform. When it does not, they conclude it does not work. But transformation does not happen on your timeline. It happens on the timeline of accumulated small decisions. Think of it this way. You did not become the person you are overnight. You became that person through thousands of small thoughts, repeated over years, until those thoughts became beliefs, and those beliefs became behavior, and that behavior became your life. To reverse that process requires the same mechanism. Thousands of small thoughts, repeated over time, until they become beliefs, and those beliefs become behavior, and that behavior becomes your new life. You will not see the change in week 1. You may not see it in month 1. But if you persist, if you redirect your thinking every single day, if you act from identity instead of emotion, if you guard your mental environment and refuse to give up, you will reach a tipping point. And when you reach that tipping point, change will not feel slow anymore. It will feel sudden. It will feel like everything shifted at once. But it did not shift at once. It shifted gradually, invisibly, beneath the surface, until the accumulated weight of your new patterns finally broke through. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. It is better to redirect your thinking 10 times a day for a year than to redirect it 100 times a day for a week and then quit. It is better to take one small action every day for 6 months than to take massive action for 2 weeks and then burn out. Progress is not a sprint. It is a compounding system. And the men who win are not the ones who start with the most talent, the most resources, or the most confidence. They are the ones who refuse to stop. So here we are. You now understand the identity trap and why behavior follows belief. Why your brain defaults to threat detection. The difference between blame and responsibility. How to redirect your thinking in real time. Why your environment either strengthens or erodes your progress. Why discipline must lead emotion, not the other way around. Why transformation is a long game, not a quick fix. You have all the information. Now you must make a choice. Will you continue living the script you wrote years ago, out of fear, out of habit, out of the belief that you are not capable of more? Or will you rewrite it, starting today, starting now, with the full understanding that this will be hard, that you will stumble, that you will not feel ready, but that you are going to do it anyway? This is not a small decision. This is the decision that determines the trajectory of your entire life. Because if you choose to continue as you are, here is what will happen. Nothing. Nothing will change. You will wake up 1 year from now in the same place, with the same frustrations, with the same regrets. Only they will be deeper, because you will know you had the chance to change, and you did not take it. But if you choose to begin, if you commit to redirecting your thinking, to acting from identity, to taking responsibility for the direction of your life, here is what will happen. You will struggle at first. You will catch yourself falling back into old patterns. You will have days when you feel like you have made no progress at all, but you will keep going. And over time, those small redirections will add up. Your identity will shift. Your behavior will align. And your life will begin to reflect the person you have been becoming. Not overnight, not without effort, but inevitably. Because this pattern shows up again and again. A man who controls the direction of his thoughts controls the direction of his life. Not perfectly, not without setbacks, but directionally. And direction is everything.